Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. And you're so right. When opportunity comes, then you have to be ready to accept it. And those of us who have been in Jefferson County a long time know that if this opportunity had come at different points in time before now, there is the chance that we would not have been ready to have embraced it and taken advantage of this tremendous generosity that the U.S. Endowment has placed before us. How in the world can the U.S. Endowment have more belief in Jefferson County than we do in ourselves? Well, they're not a fly-by-night group. They did not choose Jefferson County and not have done their homework. The homework has been done to know that we do have the capacity. What we do with that capacity is going to totally depend upon us. And it's going to depend upon the older heads, as Dennis has already pointed out our age. Melvin is the next generation, and we do have to embrace them and bring them in. But we have, I see Brent Dye back there who's on the listening committee as well. We've got to bring in and embrace our younger generation and make them part of this. But it's not time for us to put it all up either. We've got to stay and we've got to continue to work. All of us have either heard of or remember a very great speech that was given on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, but before a throng of about 250,000 people. That speech catapulted the civil rights movement in places that it would not have gone without the success of that speech. Dr. King's words were a call to action, and that's what Dennis and I have been asked to do here today, to put these ideas that we've all heard today, and to call Jefferson County to action. That speech that was given in 1963 has been acclaimed by scholars to be the greatest speech of the 20th century. But that speech that won those great acclaims and moved that many people had a very, very simple theme. That theme was dream. And this morning we heard about people's hopes, we heard about dreams, we heard about aspirations. And dreams are just hopes and aspirations that have not been realized yet. And I say yet, and I underline yet. Because if we do not believe in our dreams and the dreams that we need to help our young people see are possible to dream. Being an educator in Jefferson County for 36 years, I've done a lot of study trying to figure out how do we move our children, our population. There's a difference in generational poverty, situational poverty, and other types of poverty. We in Jefferson County know what poverty looks like because we see it in our community, in our next door, every time we walk out our door. 83% of our children in Jefferson County are eligible for a free or reduced lunch. By the federal definition of poverty, those 83% of our children are at a place that they are at risk. I hope and I pray that when we wake from our dream, that we are able to dream now. And as we implant those dreams and ideas in our young people, in our families that we're growing here in Jefferson County, that we can wake up to a reality that this can be. Because if we believe it can work, it will. If we believe it can't, we're still right. It won't. That was the words of Henry Ford, paraphrased slightly. But we have to change this generation of poverty, a cycle of poverty, to a cycle of opportunity. And we're capable of doing that in Jefferson County. We have overcome and worked together. We may squabble, we may have differences of opinion. chances are Melvin is not going to get 100% of the votes when he runs, but there'll be people behind him, and whoever wins will be our city council. And I know enough about Melvin to know, you know what, he's going to serve whoever that is on our city council in our town. We know the devastation of poverty because, as I said, we see it. I just want to share with you briefly what poverty does. It's devastating. It is devastating. Generational poverty is a family that has been without the resources for at least 2 to 3 generations. And in that generational poverty, poverty is linked to so many negative conditions: substandard housing, even homelessness. Poor children and teens are at a greater risk of negative outcomes, such as poor academic achievement, school dropout, abuse, neglect, behavioral, socioeconomical problems, juvenile and adult incarceration. It costs 10 times more, literally, 10 times more to incarcerate than it does to educate. And we continue to build in more prisons. Physical health problems and developmental delays. The chronic stress that is associated with living in poverty has been shown to adversely affect a child's concentration and their memory, which impacts their ability to learn. A child who has been born and raised in poverty is more likely, once they enter school, it takes great strides. But the wonderful thing about it is that the research also tells us that there is no excuse. Poverty is no excuse. It is our job as an educational system to take that child from where they are and to make the great strides. That was the whole reason of putting in Head Starts and early childhood, pre-K, and all those things, were to combat those early delays. We know, as I've said, the cycle of poverty, but let's look at the cycle of opportunity. The cycle of opportunity is defined as a series of experiences and events that build on one another and accumulate over the course of a lifetime of effort and make it possible for families and individuals to realize their full economic, social, and personal potential. If everyone gets a good education, they are more likely to get a job that pays well. Then they are more likely to be economically self-sufficient. If they are economically self-sufficient, then they're more likely to be able to buy their own home and to provide opportunities for their children. And if their children are born healthy and get a good education themselves, then that cycle will repeat itself. In closing, I want to remind you, most middle-class American families can identify that point in time that Dennis alluded to, at which they entered the cycle of opportunity. So go back to whether it was an ancestor who homesteaded a farm, a GI who took advantage of the GI Bill and graduated first in the family from college, or was it the fair lending laws, the eventual fair lending laws that allowed a great-great-granddaughter of slaves to buy a home? Whatever our entry point, the cycle of opportunity is self-sustaining. And so once the family is in it, they're likely to stay in that cycle of opportunity generation after generation. We have got to have a dream and move that dream on to action. And if we don't, shame on us. Because if we have ever had the opportunity to do something, that opportunity is right now. And I'd like to thank you all for coming and thank the U.S. Endowment for believing in Jefferson County.